Turn it up. Guess what day it is?
Hump day.
Wednesday? I was going to say the last day before game.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
No, my bad.
Yeah, I thought, didn't that catch that audio cue I threw you? Sounds like a behind-the-back no-look pass. What's up, everybody? Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the DNVR Nuggets podcast.
Let's go, fellas.
Presented, as always, by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app. You can sign up, use promo code DNVR, and become filthy rich beyond your wildest dreams.
Wow.
Well,
Or-
depending on who you listen to.
Or lose all of your money. Or, more importantly, just have a lot of fun betting small
what's
amounts
up.
with us
That's
as we
what's up.
root on Bones Highland to make three-pointers. Today, guys, we had Denver Nuggets practice for the second time. 2 practices in a row. Harrison, I think only once for the rest of the year will they have 2 practices in a row, and that's when they get back from All-Star
All-Star.
Weekend.
Well, they're not going to have another practice for the next 2 weeks
They're not going to have another practice for
here
sure.
in Denver.
That's for sure.
They've got
anywhere
in a lot of practices,
Yeah.
I feel like, this season. We
Already
were talking about
more.
this on the way over. They might have already practiced more this year than they did throughout the entire first half of last season.
You really get
They
the
practiced
sense.
so much
This is a good
year.
point. Let me couch it, though, for a second. He's Harrison Wind. Over here, I got Brennan Vogt sporting the brand new DNVR hoodie. How's that feeling?
Oh, it's so comfortable.
Also
It's-
sporting his credential.
Yeah, I forgot
He
to
wants
take that
everybody
off.
to know he
Just
is
so you guys know,
credentialed.
I was in the
So
building.
he's qualified to be on this
I covered
podcast.
the Denver Nuggets.
Is that Brennan
Brendan
Vogt from 16 Wins a Ring?
Yeah, I actually can't have this credential on screen either. So thank God for this convenient DNVR hoodie. You
Somebody's
can
going
pick
to
it
try
up
to sneak
at the
into
merch
Nuggets
store.
practice.
Yeah,
A copy of that.
Is that tie-dye?
can't let that happen. I don't know. That's a question for Eric. He likes this design.
I feel like
thing.
if
I don't know
you
what
called
to-
it tie-dye and it wasn't, he'd get really pissed
yeah,
at
he
you.
probably is.
But we
offended,
don't know if it
but
is or isn't.
I'm going to say it's not tie-dye.
Yeah. Well,
Is this shirt tie-dye?
I don't know.
I know it's
You're
the
right.
same deal. I
don't
have
know
no.
it's the exact same
I'm
deal.
embarrassed to ask him.
I'm going to say it's not tie-dye.
It's one of those questions. you're
Everybody
just
ask him that in the
embarrassed
chat when he joins the show.
to ask. The month of
In a
November
little.
is here. We are starting a new month for the Denver Nuggets. October is always the weird month in the NBA because it's not a full month. I think it's probably the most meaningless month of the year. November, you hope to start to build your identity. This is where you really think you can start to separate. Like right now, it's hard to know who's the good teams. Is San Antonio a good team? Is Utah? We don't know. Maybe.
I mean, they're not.
Yeah, maybe they are. Maybe they aren't. Are the bad teams, are the Nets for sure bad? Are they going
Yeah.
to be bad all year?
Yeah.
Maybe a new coach will change that. So we don't know. But November, I do think you start to see the trends and you go, oh, okay, there's still questions, but I can see who it is. And for the Nuggets, that's going to come on the road. But before we get to those details, Nuggets did have practice today, as we mentioned, for the second time. Harrison, you want to take us through your notes from practice?
I would love to take you through my notes from just an exhilarating Nuggets practice I thought today.
Let's relive it.
Did you really think it was exhilarating?
No.
Oh, I was going to say I did not. So tune in.
Yeah.
Stick around. Don't go anywhere.
Michael Malone, I thought, was in a much better mood today than he was in yesterday. Yesterday was the classic, we're coming off a really bad loss where we looked awful on defense type of Michael Malone mood. Today was the, let's couch that. Let's see the forest through the trees. Let's calm down. Let's look ahead to the next game, Michael Malone.
Yeah. I think appropriately so, by the way. Like,
But that's how he
you almost
always
make it
is.
sound like, like he was, in a better. Yesterday, I understand why he was in a bad mood. They lost a game they weren't supposed to.
Absolutely.
So I would have, if I were coach, I probably would be a little.
Absolutely.
Tersh.
Absolutely.
But Wynn's right. You can always tell when he's made a concerted effort to all right, let's pull it back a bit. We can't white knuckle the whole season.
Yeah, for sure. Today, the Nuggets didn't do much, live scrimmaging or anything. It sounded like that was yesterday. Today, just a lot of competitive drills. He said they did go pretty hard. And I thought a couple interesting things he had to say pertain to Michael Porter Jr. and just the differences between the starting lineup and the second unit. And you asked him about testing the limit on Michael Porter Jr.'s threes because we talked about that yesterday. Could MPJ test his own limit? What did Michael Malone think about that?
Well, first of all, he said that's a weird, interesting in a weird way. He almost was like, "Well, that's an interesting question." I don't know why it is. Honestly, I honestly was like, I think that's an intuitive question. If you have a player shooting 9 threes a game and he's making 50% of them, don't you naturally wonder, what if he took 10 a game?
He doesn't seem as
Yeah.
curious
It
as
does-
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
he doesn't seem
curious
like he's
Adam.
wondering that.
There was no curious Mike to that question.
yeah.
He was
He's
like,
not
"Oh my God."
wondering what that
And
would
to me,
look
that's
like.
that's crazy. Like, if you had a player, imagine Jokic's rookie season when he was playing like 20 minutes a game and the Nuggets dominated those minutes, naturally you ask, shouldn't he be playing more? Shouldn't you actually maybe play through him even more? This thing is working.
Yes.
So to me, I don't understand if you have a player. I just thought it was curious that you find it. What's the line? Who says that one? I find it curious why you find that curious. Isn't that from Django?
You tell me.
You guys tell me in the chat.
Yeah, I don't know.
It is. It's a great quote.
So I think Malone kind of settled on
nobody gets them.
he said, look, he's taking 9 threes per 36 minutes. I think that's pretty good. When he's open, I want him shooting the ball. If he's open 20 times per game, shoot the ball. If he's not, find other ways to score and make an impact. That's kind of where he's settled on your question.
By the way, to me, again, a non-answer.
Yeah.
A non-answer. I'm not upset about this. I'm just trying to tell people the game. I'm giving away the game. This is the game. You try to ask questions where you're like, hey, here's an interesting topic. The answer of when Michael's not scoring, he needs to find other ways to contribute. Like, yep, totally.
Yeah.
Got it.
I thought this was also interesting from Malone. He was talking about the differences between how the offense runs with the starters and how the offense runs with the second unit. And, of course, he said, Captain Obvious, one has much more ball movement. One is much more pick and roll based. Yes, that's what we've seen. One has Nikola Jokic. One is pick and roll based with Bones Highland and DeAndre Jordan. But this was interesting. He said he was watching Phoenix, Minnesota the other night. And at the start of the fourth quarter, last night, Phoenix played their all-bench lineup. And immediately, Minnesota went on a 10-hour run.
True. Were you watching that game too?
No.
I was. And it was the thing where if you watch that game, it was close in the fourth. But it was never really close. Mm-hmm. And that's why. They made it close artificially. Then you put the starters back in, they smacked the head.
And Monty Williams called timeout and put all his starters back in. We've seen that with the Nuggets already this season. Sure. So I just thought that was interesting that Malone saw that. And I think his thought in bringing that up was like, yeah, we're all trying to get our bench lineups to play well together throughout the league. This isn't just us.
Sure.
Yeah. But he is trying to play Michael Porter with the bench when he can.
By the way, we're going to get into this later. It's hard to know how much of this is an issue or anything just yet. I think with everything, it's hard to know is it an issue. The Nuggets defense, even, it's hard to know if it's a real issue. We have 7 games to go off of. In some games it was, some games it wasn't. The bench maybe has a solution. Real quick, though, did you watch the Minnesota Suns game?
I saw some of it.
Yeah. The two things. One, we talked about this before. The Suns are really good, and it sucks. They really some people have been sharing some numbers of what the Booker, Chris Paul, Ayton combo looked like when they had Jay Crowder versus if you just swapped him with Cam Johnson. And even last year, the numbers were way better. You're looking at it. They look really, really, really good, connected, and they do not at any way look like a team that is fussing or frustrating, whatever.
Yeah.
No 8 and even, and they still smack. And conversely, Minnesota, who we all thought like, okay, good regular season team probably. They got talent. Are they going to be a tough mismatch? I don't want to say it's gone the worst it can so far. Again, it's only 7 games for them as well. But, man, they look clunky. And then after the game last night, Anthony Edwards, I don't know if you guys caught that, he was asked about, he hasn't dunked or something this year. He's like 0 dunks or something, or barely dunked. And he had a quote. He's like, yeah, it's too crowded in there. There's all these 7-footers clogging everything up. And it's one of those questions.
Including the one on my team.
2 on his team. The 2, I mean, that's the implication.
Well, Towns is, yeah.
Well, that was the implication, was that, yeah, there's not spacing like there has been in years past. And I don't think he said it as like, some guys say things and they have a little spice to it. He was kind of like laughing about it, but it's still an insight into what he's thinking, which is like, man, this kind of sucks for me. I just thought it was interesting. So.
Yeah. Well, maybe the
early trends.
The real distraction in Phoenix was Jay Crowder all along. And now that he's gone, everything's gravy.
This team was always going to win a lot of regular constructed.
I don't think always. I think always.
I think always. I think the second he came back, I'm like, all right, they're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see what they think about themselves and know about themselves in the second round.
I mean, last year Utah would be the facsimile, and Utah also had a very good start to the year. I don't think it was always the case, and I still continue to think it's not always like inevitable that they're just going to win 58, 59, 60 wins to be the number 1 seed. They do have that enormous amount of talent, but fractures happen and they pop up in different ways. Like I said, Utah got off to an extremely hot start, and then it kind of hit a wall later in the season. Maybe similar things happen with Phoenix, but they look like they have continuity. I think the month of October, we just said it doesn't matter that much. I think it tells you more than anything else, it tells you who has continuity. Mm-hmm. The teams that have continuity, generally speaking, get off to hot starts. And Phoenix, I think,
and
is the best
even
example.
You can look at a team like Golden State. The starters have continuity. They look great. They're working some new bench guys in, and it's a mess.
I'll tell you what. The Warriors guys don't annoy me, mostly because like some of them are my friends, like the loudest voices. Not all of them. I don't see like some people are like, oh, Warriors Twitter's the worst. I don't live in Warriors Twitter, so I don't know. I just know Sam Esfandiari.
Sure,
I love him.
sure.
Nothing more fun, though, than watching him post this type of shit we were last year, where it's like, Steph's a plus 18 and they lost. And you're like, yeah, it sucks, huh?
Welcome to the fight.
He played all but 10 minutes and was a plus 20 and they still lost. You're like, yeah, it sucks, huh? It's really a bummer.
Steve Kerr has won as many titles as many different ways as you possibly can, and everyone over there is still like, that guy, though.
Yeah, exactly.
That guy.
His
Just run,
rotations.
pick and roll, and we wouldn't have to deal with this.
It's too funny, man.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the team the Nuggets are playing tomorrow, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Malone was saying
4 in a row.
Every time, we've played them, it seems like it's a good game. He was talking about last time they played in the home opener. Denver allowed 17 blow-bys for 31 points. He said Oklahoma City is a good rebounding team. They live in the paint. Every time we play them, it's a hard-fought game. SGA is an all-star. SGA leads the league in ISOs, drives, and pick and rolls.
Sick. I think those are the things that Denver struggles with the most.
Yeah.
They also run the action the most, though. I mean, this is a double-edged sword. He is elite at those skills. They also play a style where they just count on him to do it a lot.
Yep.
And it works.
They're well coached. Actually, Jokic said that they're well coached.
I have you ever heard Jokic say? I mean, I think he has a few times before pointed out that's a well coached team. But
Phoenix maybe.
Yeah, but I still always perk my ears up when I'm kind of like interesting, giving. He's crediting them for something.
I think Phoenix is the only team I can think of.
And by the way, when he says that, think about how loud they were the team that were sending the hard doubles and everything that first time around. Right. So it's like they had a very loud adjustment to playing the Nuggets, which I just find interesting. And he also credited them because a lot of teams will be like, hey, we're going to step up a little higher here. Or we're going to send the double from here, whatever. Oklahoma City's was like, no, wait, just go right away. Double team hard.
Yeah. Oklahoma City, they play like a college team. They're so disciplined, I feel like. Like whatever their coach says, they're going to go out there and execute. But there's no deviating from the game plan when you're the Thunder.
I have another theory on October basketball. Teams that have more simplistic systems offensively are further along. So you think of like a Dallas, and I know that they're maybe not the best example. They're just not that good. I think they're okay. They're mixed. But their system's easy, man. If you're just a role player in that system, it's like, okay, so I stand here on this play. I stand here on this play. Same thing. I'm just standing. Oklahoma City to me is like that.
But I was saying that more as so that's how the Thunder always are at any point in the season.
But
they play exactly like how their coach wants them to play. They do everything like as they worked on it in practice. But
again, because they ISO so much, because they spread pick and roll so much, I just think you spend less time working on that because there's less moving parts. The exception to this rule, interestingly enough, Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, they don't play a really complicated offense.
Super simple, and they suck right now.
The
Warriors, though, for example, again, continuity, they play the most complex offense in the NBA, and they're struggling out the gate because it's like, it takes a lot of time to kind of catch that rhythm again.
Do you agree that OKC runs perhaps the most aggressively anti-Jokic defense? Maybe
Clippers, New Orleans.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice it last year. I mean, obviously noticed it very loudly in game 1 of this year. I'll have to take a look. New Orleans and Clippers to me are
those are the.
And then Toronto, I would say Toronto's another one that's this way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's all I got from Malone.
Okay. All right. I like it. Did note real quick when you're talking about Oklahoma City, they lost 3 games in a row to start the season. They lost to Minnesota twice. They lost to Denver once. They have since won 4 games in a row, so they have the same record as Denver, 4-3. And they beat the Clippers twice. They beat Dallas and they beat Orlando. Orlando, by the way, kind of a good win. Orlando's scrappy. I know they're 1-7, but they're a scrappy team. They play hard. I watched that game. That was like, that was, I would consider a good win. Like they had to do things to win it. But here's the point. We talk about the Clippers as being off to a slow start only because they lost twice to the Thunder. Are the Thunder good? I don't know if they're good or not. I mean, they're probably more of a 30-win team, but they're not an awful team.
Right.
Like Denver, there's this mind frame of, they're a tanking team, ergo you just have to play your normal game to beat them. Like, no, you have to play well to beat
Nobody's
the Thunder.
trying to tank right now. Game number 8.
Yeah. Well,
who's trying to tank right
Indiana.
now?
I think there's a few tankers.
They got Myles Turner and Buddy Hield playing 30 minutes a game.
Yeah, Myles Turner. We're talking about that later. We got Myles Turner who's We've gone to a new level
Nobody's
in the NBA.
trying
I'm
to
telling
tank
you,
at this
nobody
point.
notices. I keep bringing this up. Nobody notices the steep curve we're on in the NBA where it's becoming more ridiculous. We'll talk about it later on.
I think everyone.
I don't
agrees
think they
at this
do.
point.
I honestly don't think they do. There was a new level unlocked this
It was
week.
pretty bad.
It's a new level that we're just like, what are we doing?
It was pretty.
We'll talk about it later.
I don't think Nikola Jokic knows we're on that level.
Kale, you see the comment? Can you respond to it?
Nikola Jokic is just showing up for another practice, going through his drills.
Trying to fight boredom.
Yeah, going through another weightlifting session, hopping on a plane, going to a new city.
I thought it was kind of enlightening, though. You're laughing, but I kind of felt like I was like, all right, a little peek into Jokic's worldview right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a peak that I think we've gotten a lot,
Yeah, that's
but
true.
Yeah.
he was kind of just going on about the early parts of the season. He was talking about the defense, where the Nuggets are at. And this was, classic Nikola Jokic today. And he was like, look, through 7 games, we're 4-3. We have a positive record. Maybe we should have won a couple more games. Maybe we should have won a couple less games. I think we're good.
What do you guys read into that?
Honestly, the only thing you read into it is that Jokic is in no way like panicked about the team or anything that has happened.
no
Not that you
kidding.
thought he would be, but I mean, I don't know. Sometimes he would say this or that. Like, I think Jokic is annoyed with the need to go through the process, as I'm sure you're about to get to. Just annoyed at. I always come back to the Will Barton doc thing I'd made 4 or 5 years ago, where Will Barton was talking about how Jokic was handing out water and his energy was so high and that the team needed that during training camp. And he's like, those are the dog days. Nobody wants to be there. And I remember thinking, like, Will's a hooper. He didn't want to be there. Like, even he didn't want that.
Right.
And now I think like, Jokic brought that energy then. Jokic is now the Will Barton in the situation where he's like, yeah, I don't want to be here. Like, why do I have to do October and November? This sucks.
Right. And then he was asked about, like, handling the beginning part of the season compared to, like, later in the season. And he was talking about how he says, look, basketball is a boring sport. You do the same thing every day. But as long as you have a routine, you'll be good. And then he was talking about when he first established his routine, and he said that Nuggets assistant Ogi Stojakovic was pretty integral in helping him with that, establishing what his routine was, establishing the work he put in every single day to kind of keep that level-headedness throughout the season.
Yeah.
And I think just to clarify, he did say, not the sport, of basketball, but
Right.
the life around the game of basketball.
He said basketball is like a beautiful game because you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
Anything can happen on any given day. You can play well one game. You can play poorly the next game. You don't know what's going to happen, but it's boring from a routine aspect.
Right.
You get up, you watch film, you practice, you fly to a new city, you practice again, you play a game, you watch film, and then you do it all over again.
And as Wyndon and I were saying, not sure Yoke's getting to new cities like whipping out the itinerary. What do you guys want to see today?
Oh, I've never
I heard
seen
there's
this.
a big
Yeah.
bean
Do you
by the
want to
park.
go to like the oldest hotel and the
Yeah.
haunted hotel in Oklahoma City?
Yeah.
There is something about this like perspective though amongst NBA players because like our lives are monotonous. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to take away from him, but I'm just saying like everyone he's like, "Oh, it's so monotonous. We have to travel to cities first class
Yeah.
and then stay at
Yeah,
hotels
I'm
and then
not
be
buying it.
Oh, we have to
And I'm
go
not-
to like a new 5-star restaurant
and he is
every
right.
night.
I'm not trying to diminish it. I'm just saying a little perspective is nice because most of the people watching the show and watching the games sit at the same cubicle every single day. That's monotonous. Like the average human's existence is monotonous,
But I can't see what he's saying though.
right? I'm not trying to be
Yeah.
a jerk about it. I'm just
Well, I
saying.
mean,
like,
no, you can say it, and the average person doesn't get $4 million a month. to
and it
live through
does,
the
and I
monotony
do
either.
empathize with the fact that for Jokic, October, November, he's right that these don't really carry the same weight, and it's hard to, and you do have to show up, and you wake up at the same time, and you have a break. I get that he is saying it's monotonous. The perspective on all this is so important for NBA players because every time I hear one of these complaints, I'm always like, man, that is good context for us to understand the challenge. Let me give you some context for why it's like, still be really grateful.
Yeah, for a lot of people who
Sure.
wait for your games to break up the painful monotony.
The most
of their
people
own
watching
lives,
this, Jokic playing a game
Yeah.
is the best part of their
they
entire
wait
week.
all day for it, and then
Yeah.
sometimes you don't shoot.
He was talking about his chemistry with Michael Porter Jr. Said, whenever we score, I think it's a good thing. Whenever we don't score, I think it's a bad thing. But our chemistry is growing.
He is.
He was also asked about if the Nuggets are physical enough. He said, sometimes we are, sometimes we are not.
I'm telling you, he's the best.
Unbelievable.
Because it's also like truthful. He's being truthful.
He's
You know what I mean?
100% truthful.
He's 100% truthful.
He's not wrong.
He's the only one who's 100% truthful.
Jokic is actually Socrates. You know, like he's just good at breaking the logic of any
sometimes
question.
yes, sometimes no. You're like,
Yeah.
shit, that is true.
He's so right.
But he did say when we were playing good, we are physical. When we're not, we're not. That's 100% true. Like when you asked if the Nuggets were a soft team, I think after the Lakers game, I said no because I've seen them be a physical team. But that's when, they're playing well. Like the Nuggets can be a physical team. They can be a team that takes it to their opponent. That happens only when they're playing well.
Right.
When they're not playing well, they do look soft.
Right.
At times.
Right.
Yeah. And then he also said to that, you can notice which teams are physical by just looking at the standings. The teams with the better records are physical. The teams with the worst records are not. I thought that was a little enlightening. At least he thinks that there's some correlation between being physical and winning basketball games.
Loved it. I absolutely loved it. I mean, this is one of my big talking points on the Nuggets just from watching him. And it's encouraging that he thinks they are physical at times.
Yeah.
Because to me, I would kind of be like, I don't know. I don't really see it. So maybe that's something that they have internally that they can tap into a little bit more. But you're right. The correlation between, the good teams are physical. It's like, oh.
Yeah, look at the standings.
Nobody ever talks about that, by the way. Like, think about all the things. Do they have enough shooting? Do they have enough defense? Do they have enough, star power or whatever it is? Nobody's ever just like, as a box to be checked, do they have enough physicality?
I think that's something that people that observe the game like us don't talk about, but people on the inside and people who have played in the league, they think that's a much bigger requirement of a championship contender than we do.
And probably what they mean whenever you hear softness used in that context. Like
Right.
literally do. And I've always felt, this is my note for Aaron Gordon, who I think has actually done plenty of things right. But if like the best version of himself on this team, if there's one guy you go like, oh, I kind of don't want to play him because I'm just going to feel him all night.
Right.
I'm going to, one guy who could maybe even inspire a little bit of fear or tentativeness, it would be him. And so if he can make that his identity, that'd be awesome.
I think it's funny. I won't going to say who it is, but I've asked a former player one time about the 80s Nuggets, in particular the 85 team, 85, 86 team, the best version of them. And I said, hey, like, did you ever feel, what did you think of that team at the time? And he goes, they were good, but we never feared them. He's like, that team we always thought they were just a bunch of wussies. And I always found that funny because when you talk to the old heads, the old fans or something, they'd always be like, man, I love that Nuggets team. I wish we could have this or that. And it's funny when you talk to a player, they're like, soft.
We didn't think about them.
They were skilled, but come on, man. They were missing an ingredient that I know was essential, therefore, whatever.
Yeah. The last note I got, he was talking about the Thunder. He did say they're well coached. Said they play with a lot of energy. Their set plays are really aggressive.
I like that. You're right. You got to pick up the details.
Aggressive drivers. They are young.
Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was very good. You're
Great
right.
scouting report.
Jokic has interesting little details there. Aggressive. All right, let's take our first break. We're a little late for our first break. But on the other side, I want to get into the Nuggets getting ready to go through a very key part of their schedule. I want to break it all down, talk about what they should go, as well as some of the keys to this stretch, what we're looking for in that stretch.
Guys, pick up some Broncos Country Pale Ale this week so you're ready to go for the Broncos game 2 weeks from now. They have a bye week this week, but there it is. Broncos Country Pale Ale in that Broncos blue can. What a gorgeous can that is. Pick some up. It's Broncos season. Broncos are coming off a W, so we don't have a lot of moments this season to bask in this
victory
glory.
Beer? Is the Broncos Country a victory beer for the next 10 days?
It certainly is. Pick some up. Breckenridge Brewery is the official beer of DNVR. If you don't know where to get Breck Brew, check out the Breck Brew beer locator on their website. That will tell you where to get Broncos Country Pale Ale no matter where you are. Broncos Country Pale Ale from Breckenridge Brewery. Make sure to pick some up this week. At DraftKings Sportsbook, guys, the NBA is back. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. They're hooking new customers up. You guys can make any $5 NBA moneyline bet. Get $200 in free bets if your team wins. In addition, they've got the stepped-up same-game parlay promotion going for everybody, not just new users. The more legs you add, the bigger your payout will be. You opt in to the stepped up same game parlay. You activate the same game parlay feature. Choose your same game parlay. Add a bunch of legs. If you add 10 legs, you get a 100% profit boost. Then you make your bet with that. Win even more money with that stepped up same game parlay.
I'll tell you what. I won one and lost one last night, but the one I lost made me so mad because I was like, all right, Steve Nash fired, Kevin Durant.
Everything's cured. The
no,
Nets
not
are good to go.
Not everything's cured, but we even see a bad team fire the coach, and then they have one game.
You
where
always
it's just
win the
like,
fire
you always
coach
win
game.
that one.
Yeah.
And I was like, KD in particular, who openly was lobbying for them to fire Steve Nash. He actually literally said him or me.
Yeah.
They fired him. I was like, oh, KD's going to come out and give full effort. He did. They
And
still lost.
That's
They
going to tell you
still lost.
everything you need to know about
They
the Brooklyn.
still
How'd
lost.
Kyrie do?
He had a rough
Well,
one,
he's
man.
simmering down.
Oh,
He
he's
had a
simmering?
rough-
He's simmering
He
down.
had a rough
All
one.
right, simmer. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code DNVR. Make any $5 bet this week. Get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with promo code DNVR. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
I'm telling you, this bet was like KD points, KD rebounds, KD steals, KD assists,
He hits it in the
KD's
first
threes,
half.
like all of these different
Not
things.
Kevin Durant wins.
And then I put the last one. I'm like, well, if he does all these things, surely they will win. Nope, caught every KD bet right, lost the money line bet. And I was like, you got to be kidding me, man.
Parlays are the devil's work.
when you
But they're
hitch your
very fun.
wagon to Kevin Durant about anything, it hasn't ended well in the last couple of years.
Man, so I got to tell you, so I having a conversation with some fellas yesterday. I know we're off of some fellas. Said KD's in his mellow phase now. His like where he's just going to be good for a while, where nobody, but it means nothing, and then just disappear. And I
So
was
Melo's whole career?
hey man, Melo went to the Western Conference Finals in Denver, this or that. But I mean, when he said this, I was kind of like, you're right. He's still really good. It just makes no difference, and he's kind of become, in a weird way, irrelevant. Now he might get traded to a good team and elevate them again, but
Isn't this what Kevin Durant wanted?
listen, man, listen.
He just wants to be left alone.
Not
and
enough
hoop.
was made of his comment when he was like all that Steph Curry ball movement stuff. He was feeling it. He was in his feelings, I think, at this time.
Oh, of
you know,
course.
but him saying, "Well, that ball movement stuff is cute till you get to the conference finals and finals.
Right,
That's
right.
when you need this or that." And like, that was a real philosophical statement that was made that a lot of people agreed with and continue to agree with.
Yeah.
That has just like could not have gone in more polarizing differences. Warriors won a title with that cute stuff that you can only do till the conference finals. The Nets missed the playoffs.
They haven't done anything.
It got swept and now are like a complete thing. I know other pieces are involved here, but I'm just saying, man, there's something to this, and it's weird that KD, for whatever reason, when he's such a great player, has hitched his wagon to trying to prove this one thing right. When it's like, man, it just sucks. I hate it. I actually hate it because KD is too good of a player to have done this to himself.
It does make you wonder if it's a crazy thing to say about one of the 10 or whatever best players ever. If he even if he's the best version of himself, because that philosophical difference.
I don't think that's unfair at all. Like, how
I know,
can
but
you-
it's a crazy thing to wonder, about a guy so good. But
I would go further and just say it's hard at this very moment to answer that in the positive.
right.
Like, I just don't think that it is the case. And by the way, and I'm not trying to rag on Carmelo. Carmelo also a great player, but that was the Carmelo experience for the people that lived it. It was always like he's so good. If it just clicks for him, it's going to go to a whole other level.
Yeah.
And you never really felt like it clicked. It did. And the Lakers series in 2009, I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but like that was probably his best series. He really stepped it up there, and you saw a glimpse of like, man, this guy he had pockets, he had flashes here. So anyway, it's just I think it's an important context to think about the game of basketball. And when we talk about Michael Porter, some of this, every person's story is different, but there's some of that too where you're like, man, I just know this guy could be like one of the 10 best players or 15 best players or most impactful or whatever you want to say. I just know he can be, and it doesn't always click for him in that way. So you're rooting for it to happen with Michael Porter. You were rooting for it with Carmelo Anthony, and in this moment, in a weird way, I'm rooting for it with KD. Not because I want the Nets to do well, but just because I love basketball and I want to see the best of people.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you guys.
He is irrelevant now, which is crazy.
I mean, they went to like the most soulless franchise in the league.
Well, you at least thought they'd be a decent basketball team.
That is true.
It's really, really
The
weird.
way they just weren't good.
But like this year, they're just not good.
Yeah.
Well, the death. Actually, I would say this. We weren't planning on talking this, but I think it's very interesting. So we'll go with it for a little bit here. The death of the super team. I don't think there's a death of it, but sort of like the cultural irrelevance. I was asking somebody the other day. I'll ask you guys. I don't remember if I asked you this. What do you think is the most culturally relevant team of the last 22 years? So since the year 2000.
Culturally relevant. What does that even mean?
Relevant to
NBA.
basketball
The
culture.
Warriors, I think.
Easily the Warriors to me. I don't think it's. I mean, Steph Curry and the Warriors have changed and dominated 1/4 of the last 22 years, and easily the one.
Yeah.
Who would be number 2? You're going all the way back to 2000.
The Heatles.
Oh, see, I disagree. I think it's the Lakers, the 2000 to 2002 Lakers that won 3 titles with Kobe and Shaq. They were just so big. The Heatles to me are a distant third, maybe not even third. And this was my point. They were culturally relevant at the time, but I don't think they come to mind right now when you say, "Hey, most important team." I think you think of them because of player empowerment.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, they started the super team.
So they were in that way, but just in terms of thinking about that team, you might even have a hard time naming the players on that team outside of the 3. Like even the Norris Coles and the Mario Chalmers have sort
Carlos
of just like
Arroyo.
they've become
Shout
less
out Joel Anthony.
less
Mike
than
Bibby.
footnotes. They've become just like, oh yeah, I don't even
Eric
remember
Dampier.
those guys. I don't know. There's
Mike Miller.
an interesting thing to me where some of these other teams are going to have a more staying power, and the Heatles just become like this footprint where we talk about player empowerment. We don't actually talk about the team and how they played or what they did.
I actually agree with that.
So
For sure.
kind of interesting. All right, let's get back to the Nuggets here. They are going on the road. 9 of the next. So we want to look at the month of November and just say, how can this be a successful month? What are some of the questions and big storylines that have emerged? If you asked Michael Malone this one, I think it would be a no-brainer. He would say defending on the road. He has made a big point to say at home they
Pack
have
your defense.
pack your defense. They have defended well at home. They have not on the road. I don't know if I'm comfortable making that distinction just yet because 7 games means 3 at the home, 4 in the road. It's hard to say. But I will say, we talked about this yesterday. I think there's a little bit of branding because he knows they're going on the road. So if you can phrase it as, hey, we need to bring our defense on the road, he's really just saying we need to defend.
Right.
And then, guys, it's like a psychological trick. I honestly think he's doing that. But they have 9 of 12 on the road. Can they be a good defensive team? Harrison, by the end of November, or the month of November, let's cut out October because they're weighed so far down. Just in the month of November, where's Denver going to be defensively?
Well, I'm looking up where they're ranked right now. They are 26th defensively.
But let's throw that out. I just want to throw out because, the truth is they're 26. So even if they have a top 10 month, they're probably going to be like 18th or 17th.
Yeah. I think over the next, couple weeks, over the course of this road trip, I think they're going to definitely improve defensively. I think they will. I really think a lot of Denver's defensive struggles right now come down to the fact that they're incorporating a lot of new faces. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Bruce Brown, the bench unit, Michael Porter's back, Jamal Murray's back, and then that's the other part of it. Just Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. not playing last year. I think inherently those guys were going to struggle defensively out of the gate. I think right now is as bad as Denver's going to look defensively all season because of all those things.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's some switch that flips, but I could see them working their way to 15 to 20 as opposed to
I just think
like
it's going to be a
26 to 30.
natural progression.
Some of it is Jokic too. I mean, the first Lakers game, he was everywhere in terms of passing lanes and deflections in his hands. I think he had like 4 steals that game, and you could feel the impact that had defensively. You know, Malone's going to emphasize every time that step one of rim protection happens out on the perimeter, right? Point of attack defense. But the next layer of it is actually the center. And I think a little more effort from Jokic. When we've seen it, the team looks better. And I think he can play a role in just setting the tone. You know what I mean? Like, oh, look, Jokic's busting his ass back there. Like, we should be focused. We should be locked in. We should be, doing the same. So I think they can get to 15 to 20-ish, and I'd love to see that. I
think the defense thing, and I think all of this season so far, like the more you just kind of get away from the reaction to games or this, that, and you start to think about what's going on, a 82-game season is like a big project. We just did the documentary. It's a big project, right? It was not, we're going to work on this for 12 hours straight and then be done with it. It's like we got to plan 6 weeks in advance and do a little bit at a time. And when you do a big project, there's little pieces that come in where you're like dotting every I, crossing every T, locked in, all aspects of it. And then as you get into it, and it's sloppy and there's things, all these other, your mind just gets divided into 100 different things and things start, the I's stop to be dotted. Defense to me is all about dotting your I's, crossing your T's. I think some of Jokic's and the Nuggets at large is, wow, we have so many things to improve on. And it's hard to be like, we're going to dot our I's and cross our T's on defense every time. Because then I'm also emotionally dragged down by this thing I have to do and this thing and everything else. And I think that's where the Nuggets are. I will say that if you look at the typical Nuggets arc, usually they start out great on defense,
Yeah.
and then get worse in the middle of the year, and then pick it up again at the end of the year.
Yeah.
You're starting bad, and I don't know if November is going to be the signal of improvement in that regard. I kind of wonder.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be marginal. Like, I really do. The Nuggets are in this position now. They're in a different position entering the season than they've been in these past years. They have more of a veteran team now than they've ever had in the Jokic era. Expectations are higher now than they've ever been in the Jokic era. Internally and I think externally, when it comes to our expectations. The veterans on this team, they know what they have to do to make it through and be at their best, come playoff time. I just think Denver is kind of easing into this season, especially with Jamal Murray getting ramped up and Michael Porter not playing last season. I just think they're on a ramp right now.
Yeah.
It's like, when you start a new job, if you're on a quota, you get ramped. You don't have to hit your full quota in that first month. You have to hit 25% of it. Then next month it's 50, then 75. Then 3-4 months into it, you're finally at 100% of your quota. I just feel like that's how Denver is easing into this season.
And they'll probably be okay. I mean, I expect this team to look really good at some point. But I do wonder if there is something to, you just spent the last year and a half either ramping down or trying to keep your head above water, or a lot of ramps, or is there something to just getting into the, hey, we can't not dot our I's because the T's aren't crossed too. Like, we got to be putting the effort in to tighten this stuff up. And if it doesn't happen now, will we get too deep into the season where the tone has already been set that, that can fly. And, I don't know. I'm sure this is an internal conflict and challenge for Malone, eternal challenge of just, how hard do I ride that versus trusting they'll probably figure this out?
Yeah. The thing with me, if I told you if they're going to be a top 20 defense in the month of November, you say yes?
Yeah, I think so.
You say yes? I'm going to say it's going to be right around 20. I might even go no. And the reason is, one, again, 9 of the next 12 are on the road. Teams just shoot better by 2-3% when they're at home versus the road. Like, Denver's going to have good defensive possessions where guys just make shots and teams get hot. And I think it's under. Who's calling in right now?
No, that's not us. That's downstairs.
Oh, okay. The other thing that's on the docket for me here is Jokic's aggressiveness.
Yeah.
This has been a talking point. Let me give you some numbers here. He's averaging 21 points per game, which is less than the previous 2 years by about 5 points. Not a surprise necessarily that it's lower, but 5 points, okay. His 23.3 usage is the lowest since his rookie year. So it's also just he's just doing things less. Lowest since it would be one thing if it was his sophomore year where he came off the bench. It's lower even than that year. He came off the bench till December 15th. Like, think about that. And then 13.6 field goal attempts per 36 minutes, also the lowest since his rookie season. So this is not just a reduction back down to the, pre-trade or pre-injury era. It's a reduction all the way back to the Emmanuel Mudiay era, all the way back to then when he was playing like 12 minutes a game. And then the one that's craziest, 9.2 assists per 36 is his highest ever. So maybe it is just he wants to be more of an assist person, although it's 9.2 compared to like 8.8, so it's not that much higher, but it is a little bit higher, for it to go up. So Jokic's aggressiveness, I don't think that if you asked Jokic, is this an issue? I think he would say no. I think he's playing exactly how he kind of is setting the table. That being said, this is one where I do anticipate the month of November we start to see a little bit more throwback Jokic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's how you win those road games while Jamal's ramping up. And
right.
all those factors working against you is the best player plays that way, and he doesn't let you go on a slide. So I anticipate seeing that as well. But it does seem it is like he seems very content to, like, hey, this is Jamal's time. Like, if Jamal needs to dribble around out there, let him dribble around.
Right.
We will figure this out, and it will come back to the balance. So that does seem to be his approach.
He also, by the way, and I don't know if you mentioned this, maybe I missed it, but when asked about his chemistry with Michael Porter, Jokic did say it's getting better. Mm-hmm. Like, he's like, there is improvement there between us from the start of the season to now. And that was meaningful to me that he.
I think so too. Yeah. And I think if Jokic told the truth when you asked him, what's your goal right now at this point in the season, I think he would say getting Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. up to speed. I think knowing what we know about Jokic and how he enters a season and what his priorities are, I think that his main goal right now is top priority this early in the season, over the first month of this regular season, is to get Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. to a level where he can then, turn it on and get back to the player he was last year. But I definitely think he entered the season thinking, all right, we got to get these guys ready. Like, that is our first priority, getting those two guys good to go. Then I can kind of do my thing after that.
Right.
That's what I think. That's my read. I don't know. Like, that's just my read.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what kind of numbers he puts up in this next month. I'm curious to see what he puts up not tomorrow. I'm also curious how Oklahoma City guards him.
Yeah.
They guarded him that way here in Denver, and Denver made a lot of three-pointers in that game. It was at home. Do you try that same strategy, and do guys make shots when they're on the road? It's a good question. We'll find out. I think tomorrow night's game is going to be a tough one. I think it's a really tough one.
Oh, yeah. Always is.
I'm curious to see what the line is when it comes out. Let's take a break. I got a couple more on here, including finding Michael Porter Jr.'s offensive limit. That might be a thing we explore a little bit, although not according to Michael Malone, but might happen naturally. Might happen naturally in November.
Guys, make sure to get set up with Evoca TV right now, because you don't only get to watch the Nuggets games on Evoca TV. You get to watch the DNVR channel. And what is playing on the DNVR channel right now? 100 Invisible Threads.
Tonight,
by the way, 7 o'clock, the second showing of it. I'm telling people, I've told people this. I am so insanely proud of it. And you guys know me. Every time we do a big project or something, I always assume it sucks. I'm just like, if we throw a big event, nobody's going to come to it. I'm just a pessimist in that way. I'm like a cynic. This is one, it's really rare for me to say, I think this is good. Like, it's something I'm really proud of, and I think it's great, and I think people are going to absolutely love it. So if you got a Vodka TV, make sure you set your alarm tonight at 7 o'clock so you can be sure to watch it live.
Yes.
And tweet about it. Use hashtag Invisible Threads. Let us know what you were thinking. And I will say, the response to the few Serbian people that have been able to view it, some of the people that helped me with the project and stuff, has been the thing that's most calmed my nerves about it. About, hey man, some people said nailed it. Like, this is exactly the story that we think people were going to want to hear about Serbia and about Yugoslavia, which is so cool to hear.
Yeah, it's playing tonight on the DNVR channel on Evoca TV at 7. It's also playing on November 8th and then November 15th. At 7 as well.
If you don't have a vodka, by the way, so if you don't have a vodka, sign up. You'll get it by the time they shows next week. You'll have it ready to go.
You can get Evoca. Go to evoca.tv. Sign up for $25 a month plus a $5 receiver fee. Evoca.tv. $25 a month for Evoca TV plus that $5 receiver fee. Watch our 100 Visible Threads. Watch the DNVR channel where all our live shows are streaming. Watch Nuggets games too. That's not a bad third thing you get with Evoca TV. Also, Athletic Greens. Make sure to sign up with Athletic Greens as well. It's the best way to start your day. If you want better gut health, if you want more energy in your daily life, if you want an optimized immune system, check out Athletic Greens. 1 scoop of Athletic Greens, you're getting 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. Go to athleticgreens.com/nuggets. athleticgreens.com/nuggets to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Just 1 scoop of Athletic Greens and a cup of water every single day. That's it. No need to worry about all these different pills and vitamins. Just Athletic Greens. That's all you need. athleticgreens.com/nuggets.
All right, back here, segment 3, and we're talking about November, what some things we're looking at. I hinted at it, but finding Michael Porter Jr.'s offensive limit. It's funny. If you ask Michael Porter, about expanding shots, he's like, I just feel like 50%. I can do that no matter how many I take.
Yeah,
I can make
1 out of 2.
You ask Michael Malone, you ask Nikola Jokic, both of them kind of like, I don't like if things are going great.
They're like, he's shooting well? Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like the limit is just play within yourself. We're kind of where we are. I think these things those are the types of questions that you ask players or coaches, and they're not necessarily keyed in on because they're thinking about different things. I do think, though, it's a natural progression that we are going to see over the month of November. Michael Porter averaged, 18 points per game?
18 and a half. He's
18 and a half. I think he's going to average over 20 for the month of November, and I think it's going to come off of the exact same shooting profile that he has now, bumped up a little bit.
Well, he should average it. He's scoring efficiently enough right now where you say, regardless of where the fault lays, whether that's a Porter problem, a staff problem, or a teammate problem, he's got to shoot more. Like, there are too many possessions where you go, what was that, when that guy's on the floor. And the crazy thing about Mike is when he says, I feel like I'm shooting well this year, and I just think about the shots that I missed, and they're shots I should have hit. And everyone goes, yeah, I agree with him.
Right.
All those shots should have gone in. So the tough thing is, from the Malone perspective, I think if you were 100% confident that the ways you were trying to coach Porter, know the offense, just be foolproof on defense and rebounding. If all of that was there, then maybe he would say, now we're experimenting. Now it's about unlocking you. But that may run contrary to this sort of like tightrope walk he's trying to do of like, you let Mike be Mike, but can you be this version of Mike?
Yeah. But where you can really let Mike be Mike is on the second unit.
Correct.
And I'm actually buying
great
Malone with this, where he really says the goal is to have him out on the floor with that second unit. They couldn't do it as much last game in LA because of foul trouble. We're going to see Porter with the second unit every single game, I think.
I do too.
And the majority of minutes that the bench is out there for, he's going to be playing with that group. And that unit allows him to be Michael Porter Jr. and I think like play the way that he grew up playing. And I just think he's going to get a lot of points with that second unit. And so I think that's going to lead to him, up in his scoring average as well this next month. And just kind of stepping back about Porter, I don't think we've kind of just talked enough about how he's come back after missing a full season pretty much and just been the same incredible offensive player he was 2 years ago.
Totally.
The last time he was fully healthy. I mean, it's been pretty incredible. We've seen how an 18th-month layoff has messed with Jamal Murray's shot, and he's struggling to get his three-point shot back. Michael Porter Jr., after missing, a year pretty much, 12 months, is an even better shooter than he was. The last time he was fully healthy on an NBA court. That's wild to me. And I think it's a testament to just how much work he puts in behind the scenes. And like I've reported this already this season, the work he put into his jumper this summer. We've talked about it, but the fact that he's come back and is an even better offensive player and an even more polished offensive guy than he was 2 years ago, the last time he was fully healthy, I think you got to give him a lot of credit, probably more credit than people have been giving him.
And just how good he is, right? Taken at 14 because of the back injury. You go back, his almost certainly erroneous claim to have shot 75% from three in high school.
That's bullshit.
I wanted to go back and look into that. So
yeah,
there's almost no way. I bet it was like 60 though. But
I don't know, man.
As
75% from three.
Here's the reason. Here's the reason why, man. When you're a top school like that, you play 6 tough games, and then you play a lot of like, oh man, these poor suckers had to go up again. You saw the video of Zion against the little dude that's like 5'3", and he's like trying to drop. Like when you're a top team like that, where all the kids came there, you play a half of your games against those guys. He might have shot 100% in like 5 different games.
The point is, I went back and I looked at his draft profile in a way that we didn't even then, because we never thought he'd be here, and it's like, the videos are titled like, is this the best season ever in high school? Is this the best player
Give
we've
the
ever
stats.
seen?
Do you remember him off the top of your head?
He's averaging like
have him in the chat. Let me see
36
if I can
points,
find it.
15 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals per game or something.
Yeah,
Bro, he had to have been averaging more than 36 a game if he was shooting 75%.
Yeah, he was not shooting
from
75%.
3.
36 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 points, 2 steals per game.
He
I'm
dominated.
impressed.
36 points.
I'll tell you what the most
In a high
impressive
school
number
game
of that is.
hilarious.
It's the 5 assists.
No, it's not. 36 points is a lot of points.
Did
for
you
a
know
high
that
school
his
game.
mom averaged 55 points a game her senior year of high school?
I do believe that.
Yeah.
The things you believe versus what you don't.
That
believe
one's
is wild.
documented, though. That one's documented.
Yeah, I believe that.
I don't know, man.
I don't believe he shot 75% from 3.
I mean, I don't either. I'm just saying it's not as absurd when you factor in that the 3-point line's close. He's a foot taller than half the people he went against, and half the games they played against. None of those guys went to college. You're just going up against a group of buddies who were just signed up to get their ass kicked by Michael Porter.
Pre-first surgery, which I'll always wonder. I always wish I kind of got to see him play.
Well, when he was asked the other day about how healthy he is,
His
he's like,
explosiveness.
yeah, his explosiveness. explosiveness. He's like, I think it's back to where it was the last time I was healthy with the Nuggets, but not back to where it was in high school, which tells you, like, you're right.
Watch those videos, man. He is soaring up there for one-handed alley-oops.
Oh, yeah.
It's it's a different thing.
I think Michael Porter is going to have a very good November, just because I think he's ready for it. He's shown me all the things I needed to see offensively, and I just think he's ready for an elevated role. Bench lineup is obviously the biggest one. We saved it basically for last year. The Nuggets, guys, tell me if you've heard this story before. The Nuggets are plus 36 when Jokic is on the court this season.
Cool. That's awesome.
They're minus 56 with him off.
I actually haven't heard that because that's significantly worse than they were last year, game to game.
What's crazy is Michael Porter is actually a bigger on-off, and this is why I think the bench is solved a little bit. There's been wonky numbers. Bones has missed. Michael Porter. You get them all in there. Bones and Michael Porter, I think, are going to be the bench, and I think you're going to end up having much less variance here. Weirdly, the Jokic-Porter on minutes have been so-so. They haven't been the best, but Jokic on has been dynamite. Porter on has been dynamite. Both of them on has been very good. And then you look at this when they're both off, and it hasn't been a ton of minutes, but it actually has been a ton of minutes relative, but they're minus 77 when both of them are off. They have an 84.7 offensive rating in the 100 or whatever minutes it is when neither of them have been on the court. That's wild.
It's the answer, right? Like, one of those two guys have to be on the floor, I think.
Eventually, you can say Murray, Bones, and some of the numbers here are when none of those guys were healthy. Like,
right.
A lot of these minutes are minus 13 and 2 minutes in the Lakers game, right? The third quarter. A lot of these are in tiny little pockets. But I think that one of the things you should feel good about for the month of November is, with any luck, knock on wood, you probably are going to have one of Jokic or Porter on the court almost the entire game.
Right.
And you're likely to have Murray or Bones on the court with one of those guys at all points. And to me, that just like elevates your floor quite a bit. Yeah. So solving the bench is going to be an issue. I just think this one is probably closer to being solved than we think. It's just the team hasn't been healthy. If the team's not healthy in November again, which is possible.
If Porter Bones doesn't work on the second unit, I don't think anything will.
It might be true, but it's going to work. I just think it's going to work.
I think it will too. I think it's going to be good enough.
I also think this gets forgotten. Like, it's been the plan for 2 years. Like, a back surgery got in the way, but even Malone saw right away, like, okay, he should play. He should play with those guys.
I do think that it's a bummer, man. A sneaky bummer of last year's injuries is that we didn't get to see what Porter looked like without Murray for a full season, just a full season of it. Is it they played all their minutes together, or last year you started this process of, hey, Porter, you carry the non-Jokic minutes, and let's just see what it's like. I think we would have seen it last year and probably been further along with what you want this year. The last piece, and this goes along with the bench unit, Zeke, MIA. Do we see Zeke in November? Does he have a meaningful role on this team in the month of November?
I'm going to say no. How could you say yes? I mean, he's been banished from the rotation. Coming into this season, I thought DeAndre Jordan would be the quote-unquote backup center, but Zeke Naji would get his chances. He's gotten one chance through 7 games. Played really badly in that stint he got. Had like 0 rebounds in 10 minutes. He was awful. Like, he was a -9 or -10 in that game. But still, I thought there would be a couple games circled here and there where he would get his shot. Hasn't really gotten that yet.
And that was a back-to-back as well, right? So maybe you're
there's some like really loud moments where you're like, surely Zeke will play here.
Yeah. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, I got to say no. You got to say no right now.
And especially because they view him as the backup 5. I think if you're talking about Zeke Naji as a 4 and you're looking at some of the minutes Jeff Green's given you this year, you might say, can you try that? But that doesn't seem to be their understanding or intended use of him. And Malone seems to really love Jeff Green in the rotation. So I'm with Wynn. I'm going to say no.
I think a big thing for Bones, I hope fans have learned this lesson. There's always a scapegoat. There's always somebody's fault. If we just fix this one thing. That's why I hate some of them. I know my colleague over at Lockdown, Matt Moore, has been pointing out the Bruce Brown-Jeff Green duo. Ryan Blackburn today, I saw posted a Bruce Brown-DeAndre Jordan duo. It very well might be right that some of these combos of 2 players, I think it's overstated. Even on a full year's sample size, sometimes the 2, like, oh, you can't play this guy and this guy together. Sometimes that works, I think, mostly for like 4 5s or 1 2s. But I don't think it's like a 2 and a 5 or a 2 and a 4.
Well, Bruce Brown is not a good fit with the bench lineup. That includes DeAndre Jordan. I think that is...
Maybe, or Jeff Green. Again, these guys are supposed to put, maybe it's the trio. I don't know. What I want to say, though, is I don't know that it's fair to kind of point to those things. We talked about this the other day. Bruce Brown has the worst plus minus on all of the Nuggets. We watch him. We've been very impressed with him. Sometimes these things don't line up. I will just say, though, that the combination of these players on the bench is going to be interesting. But I'm bringing it up to say this. A lot of people have been frustrated with Bones so far this year. When he's hot, obviously it's great. Everybody loves him. But when he's not on fire, does the bench unit look a little rough? And then it's like, oh, he's being selfish, this or that. When he wasn't out there, the worst 2-minute stretch of the bench where they has the whole year. I think that this is another situation where you have to look at it and say, it's easy to say, hey, it's this guy, but I think it's logically incorrect. It's logically incorrect. And for Bones, he has a tough task. I do think that he's going to have a better November than he did October, in large part because I think the bench solutions have become more clear.
Oh, yeah.
And they are always going to have one better offensive option there.
Yeah.
So to me, if I'm building the bench, I start from a place of Bones and MPJ, and I go from there.
Yep.
Bruce is going to play, but I don't know if Bruce ends up being more of a first unit guy than a second unit guy, just with the staggering. And then everybody else, I would say, hey, let's evaluate what pieces make the most sense around those guys. Is it KCP? Is it Jamal Murray? Is it Zeke Naji?
Christian Brown.
Is it Christian Brown? Christian Brown, I should say, you start there too. But again, Christian Brown's another guy like Bruce Brown that might be more of a first unit guy, just through staggering. So to me, I think that's what November is going to be
Probably
about.
not Davon.
Christian Brown and Bruce Brown to me are great Jokic players.
Yeah.
So I almost prefer them coming in early,
Right.
and maybe you bring out, some of the other guys early, Murray and Porter early, or something. I don't know, something like that. KCP maybe.
It's a pretty complex rotation. I don't
It's
know
not.
if we
I
can
don't
handle
think,
that.
I don't think it's complex at all. I'm saying, when you try to solve the bench
When
unit,
saying baby steps here.
maybe. But I'm thinking about this. We keep talking about give the bench Porter. Well, is it Porter and 4 bench members? Maybe. What about KCP?
I like that.
KCP also, now you're starting to talk about lineups that make sense. Bones,
Yeah.
KCP, MPJ. I like that.
I think one of the beauties of this roster is you've got guys that fit so well with Nikola Jokic this season. Like Bruce Brown is such a great fit with Nikola Jokic. Christian Brown, he's kind of in that Bruce Brown archetype
I agree.
player.
And has the Jokic stamp of approval.
Yes, those guys are coming off your bench, but they fit in a way, they're versatile enough where you've got to find ways to mix and match more than you ever have in the past. You can't look at Bruce Brown and Christian Brown and say, you guys are bench guys.
Right.
You can't look at KCP and at Michael Porter Jr. and say, you guys are starters. You've got to have more flexibility with your personnel this year than you ever have had in your past, because you can this year, because you have a more versatile roster.
Yeah, I think we will in small degrees
I do
in
too.
November.
I think
really
we're
do.
trending that way, absolutely.
I think we probably would have felt better about it in the last 2-3 games. It's just there's been guys in and out of the rotation that have
Yeah.
changed.
I mean,
and made it
but
up.
Bones and Ish Smith missing minutes in the same game.
Yeah, it's killed.
It's a nightmare.
Lastly, I want to talk really briefly about this. We referenced it at the top of the show. Myles Turner went on the Woj pod.
Come on.
This week. If you don't know, Myles Turner, coming up on a contract year in Indiana, a tanking team, desperately wants to go to the LA Lakers because he is a warm-blooded American-born NBA player. But they all want to go to the Lakers. So he goes on the show, and here's why I say sometimes the temperature gets turned up on something so slow that you don't notice it, right? It just keeps going slowly. We're at a point right now in 2022 where a player goes on a podcast with Woj, the most powerful man in all of the NBA, way more powerful than Adam Silver, the most powerful man in the NBA, and he goes on there and lobs some questions. For example, would you include a first? If you were Indiana, or if you were the Lakers, would you include a first in order to trade for you? Think about how absurd this is, that the most powerful journalist, the guy that controls all the secrets in the NBA and kind of pulls the strings, is asking a player on the Indiana Pacers if another team who he doesn't play for should include a first to trade for him.
Yeah.
Guys, we are so far past the line with the NBA, and this is why I brought it up. I brought it up a couple months ago when I was talking about some of this Woj and the CAA connections, what will he and won't he say. We have a guy openly talking about a trade deal with a player.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Murray
the
was on
player
the
that's
Woj
in
pod
the trade.
and they were like, hey, man, what do you think about going to Toronto? Should Denver be willing to move you?
Yeah.
Did you be like, what the hell?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
First of all, it's not even an interesting question to him. Besides the ethical part, it's what's he gonna? Yeah, sure.
No, I see. I kind of disagree with you on this
Oh,
one.
really? I don't.
Myles
what?
Turner, because who is this for?
Him.
Who?
What do you mean?
Who is this question for? Like, who is he? Who is like getting something positive out of this? I mean, the podcast, just because it's like, people want to listen to it or whatever because it's interesting. But who is like being served by asking Myles Turner?
Myles Turner's agent.
Myles Turner, who's trying to go to the Lakers.
Right.
So you say like Myles Turner's not interested. No, Myles Turner's probably told him, ask me about being traded to the Lakers. I'm trying to make this happen.
That's why it's an uninteresting question, because I know what his obvious interest is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, who gives a shit? Yeah, I'm sure.
It's so crazy how much the NBA is out of control to me right now, and how players can literally go on a team-sponsored podcast, by the way, like ESPN. They are one of the main distributors of the NBA. You go on with Woj, the most powerful guy, and just talk about, they should trade me, man. Here's the pieces. Let's hop on the trade machine together and make a trade.
Should they have brought up a second screen?
They should have brought it up and done the trade machine for a while. Like, oh man, it doesn't work.
All right, so we got to throw in Russell Westbrook.
Exactly.
Wait, should we reroute him to like Charlotte?
Let's
reroute
do that.
him to
We bring in
Charlotte.
now
Okay.
front office insider Bobby Marks. Bobby,
Guys,
Bobby, why isn't this trade being accepted?
the NBA is so far away right now, and I honestly don't understand how it's not a bigger story. These types of things.
Yeah.
A player openly doing trade machine type stuff for his own team is just so like, we are so lost. It's so broken.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it. I mean, it was a big story, but to me, it's like so much of a
So this
bigger
trade's
story.
definitely going to happen, right?
I mean, it has to happen. Like, I
It's
don't
definitely going to happen.
Maybe the Pacers will pull a Spurs and just be like, hell no, we're not doing it. We'll send him to a way worse package. We'll send him to, I don't know, Orlando or something.
How'd that work out for the Spurs, though?
This is the problem. The Spurs stood on principle, and now
they
they're
fucked them.
6 years later, here we are still tanking. Like,
Yeah.
it's wild. It sucks. And then Kawhi just ended up in L.A. anyway. Miles will just end up in L.A. anyway.
Right.
There's nothing you can do about it. But
Right.
Adam Silver, meanwhile, is sitting there twiddling his thumbs. Well, the entire league just crumbles around him.
I think it's a missed opportunity. It will never happen. But the way you push back on this is like Brooklyn should have just traded Kevin to Orlando.
Oh, of course.
You know,
Yeah, like that's
You just go, guess what? I don't care.
The Lakers too, right? The Lakers don't have, or LeBron doesn't have a trade clause, right? That was the big thing. Like,
Only Bradley Beal has a no
only
trade clause.
there's the funniest to me would be KD getting traded to some random place. Maybe it's San Antonio. Like, it would be the best thing for him, but the ultimate, no, eat your vegetables.
Yeah.
Now you're in a good system that's going to actually work for you, and he wins a title.
Oh,
and he's
that'd be a great
unhappy.
podcast topic. Where every NBA superstar would hate to be traded the most.
Oh, and then LeBron, maybe it's Denver or something. Yeah, it's Utah with
By the
Dwayne
way,
Wade or something, where he's just like, what? I didn't sign up for this. And it's like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Is it the Lakers for Jokic?
Yeah, for sure.
It is.
I think it might. I think you might be right.
Yeah.
All right, hit that outro music, Cal.
Oh, I thought we could go on with that.
I could go on this forever. I don't know why this. I just want everyone to see this, because to me, there's always been like the NBA. You know, we always know the Lakers have had a laid up. That goes back to the '60s, man. It goes back to the '70s and '80s. That's not new. The degree to which the mechanisms are working and rowing in their favor now are so over the top that I'm like, guys, we're not even hiding it anymore. We're literally hopping on the Vogt pod and trying to figure out how to get it done.
Right.
How to get it done. Like, hey, man, next week maybe they'll have Pelinka on and ask him. Like, let's just negotiate this out in the open. Would you include the first? Let's call up Indiana on the phone and just like do this whole thing.
We're doing a show with DeAndre Jordan, trying to get him to force
Force a trade. Like,
Hey man, they could use you.
oh, jeez, you're the worst. All right, that does it for today, guys. I can't believe we survived 3 days without Nuggets basketball. Felt like a week.
The Thunder, baby, tomorrow.
The Thunder are back, and then the Nuggets go into this little series of games every other day for a month. They'll be exhausted, but we will be very excited to follow them all the way along. We hope you
They
guys
have a
come
tough
with
life.
us. Don't forget, Ivaka TV tonight, 7 p.m., 100 Invisible Threads. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. Hit the like button on the way out.